We saw in the last video that though all swaras of a raga are critical, their strengths in the raga are not the same. That is, some are stronger, they have a greater presence, whereas the others have a more diminished presence. And so it's very important that for the raga to bloom or to manifest itself, that we use the swaras in the right proportion. And this is, as you will see, that everything is ultimately, what is the right proportion? There is no way to quantify it. It's ultimately an oral tradition, that is something that is received by listening to the raga, by a teacher teaching the raga and the student absorbing it. So there is no way of quantifying any of this, but these are some of the ways we talk about ragas, right? That the ragas have swaras, and among them some are strong and some of them should not be emphasized, and so on. We also saw in the last video that there are considerations of swaras from which phrases may start, raga phrases may start or may end. Now in this video, so we are basically going beyond the scale, right? Raga is at a basic level, we talk about a raga in terms of its scale. What else can we say about the raga? So that was the strengths of swaras. That is one of the aspects. Now in this video we will look at another very important aspect of ragas, and that is ornament. Ornament, or the general category, the word for it is gamaka. Now gamaka is an ancient category found in very ancient texts in the context of music, but in today's contemporary usage of the word in Hindustani music, it has come to acquire a very specific meaning, and gamaka denotes a very specific ornament, which is a heavy kind of oscillation. So when you say gamakatan or gamakyukta presentation, it means a particular kind of ornament, and it's, as I said, it's a heavy oscillation. But gamaka has a more general sense of any ornament. Now what is an ornament? Ornament, we think of it as a beautifying device, right? Something to beautify an object that is otherwise maybe plain, and always with a view to adding something. The object that is beautified, the object that is ornamented, is thereby beautified. Now, which is all fine as applied to this music, except that the gamaka, the ornament, is not regarded as an extraneous something that you have the plain note and then you apply to it. It's more integral to the music itself. Now, gamaka as an ancient category, I said, has been described as the shadow of a previous note that passes over the succeeding note. It's like the point of meeting of the shade and the bright sun. So there is a blurring. It's not sharp and abrupt. So the idea is that one does not, the idea of the metaphor is that one does not move from one swara to another abruptly in a staccato fashion, but you move into the next pitch or the next swara or the next phrase through various movements of continuity that maintains the melodic continuity. So you may glide into it, or you may just drop into it, or you may even land with a thud, or you may oscillate towards it. So these are the various, some of the ways in which gamaka can manifest itself. Some musicians, as I said, have, since gamaka has a more specific usage in Hindustani music to denote a particular heavy oscillation, some musicians prefer to use the word alankara, which in fact literally means ornament. But alankara is also a word that is used for melodic patterns, especially those that we give for exercises. And so there is some overlapping of terminology here. So in what follows in this video and later on throughout the course, I use the word gamaka in the more general sense of ornament, any ornament at all. So what is a gamaka? Gamaka is a way of bringing notes together, as a movement from one note to another. The two or more notes come together as an integral whole because of this ornament. And we do not, as I said, think of gamaka as an external appendage as suggested by the word ornament, but it is integral to the way swaras are used in ragas. Now in Hindustani music we use a variety of gamakas and we use them extensively. As I said, this music is heavily, extensively ornamented. But the ornaments are very specific. They have to be used with great understanding and control. It is integral to the raga. Ragas depend on correct ornaments for their expression, for the ragas to be expressed. The ornament is very critical. And it is not a matter of beautifying according to one's whim. However refined sensibility a musician may have, it is not up to her whim to say that let me apply this ornament here. There are ragas' identity depends very much on correct and artistic execution of specific gamakas at the right places. That said, there is divergence in terms of stylistic preferences. So some musicians, some schools of music would prefer one kind of gamaka and some others may prefer another kind of gamaka. But that is in terms of the overall texture of the music. But when it comes to individual ragas, there are some specific expectations which are respected. Now one of the most important gamakas is the meend. Meend, which I believe might translate into the glissando, the glide. So the very texture of Hindustani music rests on meend. To demonstrate, let's take the simple rag Bhupali, the major pentatonic scale. Now if I were to sing without the meend, in a staccato fashion, it will be like this. Sa da sa re ga ga re pa ga re ga re sa da da sa. But this is not how we perform this. It goes like this. Sa, it could go like this. Sa da. So sa da. Instead of that, sa da. Sa re ga. Sa re ga. Ga re pa ga. So everywhere we you have the meaned. Ga re pa, that the glide from re pa ga, ga re da sa. So, as I said, the mean is responsible for the melodic continuity that is so so typical and so important to the sound of Hindustani music, and it's the opposite of staccato. Now, this apart from its very pervasive presence in Hindustani music, whether it's khayal or drupad or instrumental music, some ragas have a very specific requirement of the meaned in some places, because unless you have that, it is not that raga. Now, even now when I sang, even when just now when I demonstrated bhu, pa re ga re, no, pa re re ga re pa ga. This re pa re pa ga, these combinations are there in many ragas, and it will be subtly different the way that meaned is negotiated, the way the meaned is executed. So now I'll just take this example of pa re, right? And you have a rag called Chayanat. Chayanat is a rag in which this meaned is very important in a particular place. Sa re ga ga ma ma pa re. Now this pa re, this particular way of moving from pa to re, it's a meaned, but there are different ways you can do the meaned, because it basically depends on, between pa and re there are so many swaras, there are so many pitches. Which of them do you touch the slightest, just a flicker? Pa re. Here you can't really make out any particular swara that are getting lit up, but obviously you're traversing the distance between pa and re. Re re ga ma pa re, re ga ma re sa da pa. Now the same pa re in a raga like for instance pa re sa. This is the way, for instance, you use the pa re, the way the pa re is executed in a rag like God Sarang, sa ga re ma ga pa re sa pa re pa re. That is Chayanat. Now pa re, this is a different rag, because you are touching the ma and the ga, just the slightest of flickers. Pa re ni da ge re ga ma pa re. Or if you have pa re, now this is different, it's the sarang family. Re ma pa re ma ni sa. So it's a meaned between pa and re, but there are different ways that it has to be executed depending on the raga. Or again, pa re Shuddha Sarang, right? Re ma pa pa re ma ni da sa pa re pa re ma ni sa re sa. Now, pare is a downward meaned. You can also have upward meaned, as in rag like kamod. Re pa ga ma da pa ga ma re sa re pa. That our upward glide to re to pa. I'll just play a short clip here of Ustad Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab, was one of the leading lights of khayal vocalism in the last century. He has sung Rag Kamod, and the link to the YouTube video is given below, which you can listen to when you have more time. But here I'm playing a very short clip to show you how this repa glide and the gamadhapa glide happen. Another important ornament is kampana, or which is just similar to the South Indian kampita. It's also called andolita, andolita swara, andolan. Andolan is oscillation, and this, according to a definition given by Dr. Ashok Ranade, I quote him. It's an important class of melodic embellishment in which a note is produced in such a manner that the entire range between the preceding and the succeeding notes is suggested. Now, typical examples of this kampana is in ragas like Malhar, Miya Malhar, or Darbari Kannada, where the Gandhar, the Ga is oscillated. So here you have Re pa ga. So ga, that's the ga. Ga, that's the basic position of the Komal Gandhar, which is what is used in this raga. But when you sing it in Malhar, that pitch is almost not heard. The Gandhar itself exists between the Ma and the Re. In a certain way, you oscillate oscillate between those two pitches. This is the Gandhar. Re pa ga. Or you have the Andolan, the Kampana of Rishabh, the Re, the Komal Re in say raga like Bhairav. So the actual Gama, the Bhairav is this is the Rishabh, the phrase is but in Bhairav that's a very typical way of singing the Re. And also Dha, the Devat. Sada ma pa ma ga ga ma da ma pa ga ga ma pa re sa sa da ni sa re sa. So this is Kampana. Another ornament or gamaka is jhatka. Meaned after that you have Kampana. Oscillation, then you have jhatka. Now what is jhatka is again it's a fast movement from one note to another with the emphasis on the second note. So this is a typical, this is a way you can go gare, gare, this is mean, gare, gare. Now there are some ragas in which this jhatka is integral to its phrases, like the raga Savni, like sa de re, no, ga ma pa de re ga ra sa re sa re sa re sa. So you move from the one note to another with a force when you are actually highlighting the note that with which you end the phrase. So that is jhatka. Now you see, in all this there may be some amount of divergence in the names of the gamakas, and as I said, extent of usage across by musicians and especially by schools of music, like what we call gharana. Even identifying the gamakas and naming them, there may be some divergence, because you see the world of Hindustani music is not completely homogenized and standardized. There is of course order and discipline, but it's mostly at the level of individual teaching lineages or schools. Every guru will impart the gamakas and the ragas as he has learnt them from his own guru, and this is how the ragas and their textures, their identity, their swarupa, their basic personality, that is how the ragas are perpetuated through the guru shishya, the teacher student lineage. But there may be some divergence between schools, and which makes for a vibrant, maybe mildly chaotic world, as opposed to a streamlined and homogenized world of performance. So my source for the various categories of gamakas is, as I said, Dr. Ashok Ranede's work, but even he himself is, for instance, here giving a very guarded definition of another pretty important gamaka called zamzama. It's called zamzama, and he says it's reportedly a musical embellishment that uses pairs of notes in perceptibly fast tempo repeatedly and successively.
ni ni re re ga ga ma ma da da ni ni re re sa sa ni ni da da pa pa ma ma ga ga re re sa sa. With gamak you have to do.
So, this in fact Zamzama is a gamaka which may be defined slightly differently across schools. Now, khatka is another gamaka which is a cluster of notes that is produced fast and forcefully prior to the note projected as important. This is khatka. Now, I might demonstrate this with, for instance, God Sarang. Here, you see, for sa pa ma ga de ra na ra. So that's a khatka. De ra na. So a ra de ra da ra. That's a cluster of notes before. And this is quite important for the raga, this particular phrase delivered this way. Now, just as ornament or gamaka is extensive, so is microtonal nuancing, shruti. No, as I said, shruti, microtonal variations are pervasive through the music, and how we talk about it, as I said, is a slightly raised rishabh or a slightly lowered ga, and so on. But in some ragas, we actually specify this this microtonal nuancing. Like for instance, a raga like Shri or Marva, which have a komal rishabh, but they are raised. Chadha hua rishabh. So this kind of microtonal variation may not be easy to discern. So I'll try to render the rishabh of Marva. Da sa ni re ni da ma da re sa sa da da ma ga re ma ga re ga re da re sa. That re is a little raised. Again, the rag Shri, it has a chadha or a rishabh. Re re pa 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 da da ma ga re re da ma ga re ga re sa sa ni sa re ni da pa pa ni sa re re ga re sa. So these are ragas in which we actually talk about the Shruti considerations, but in every raga there is so much that is happening in terms of microtonal nuancing that we simply absorb by given our exposure to the music, the training and the listening to masters. We also have the ragas described in terms of their prakriti, their nature. So you have ragas which are gambhir, they are dignified, sober ragas, which demand a very very systematic and very slow and deliberate treatment. And you have what is called chanchal, that is, which demand ragas that cannot tolerate that kind of a very elaborate presentation, but it's in their nature that they be rendered in a much quicker way, quick, light-footed, fast-paced. For instance, we have a rag called Deshkar, which actually has the same scale as Bhupali or Bhup, which we have seen earlier in the course. So it has the same scale, the same set of notes. But one of the distinguishing features of Deshkar is that it is a chanchal raga. It is quick. Okay, so Bhoop is usually explored in a very, very slow and deliberate manner. Sa da pa da dha sa sa re ga re ga da da sa re ga da ga re ga sa re da da sa re pa ga. So Deshkar is much quicker. It has a chanchal prakriti, that is, it just moves, it keeps moving quickly. Sada pada sa pada ga pa ga pada pa ga sa. So this is the rough movement of Deshkar. This which is a chanchal rag. You can't give it a very slow treatment without destroying it. Typically, we also see that these chanchal ragas are what we call uttarang pradhan. That is, they remain confined to the upper reaches. We don't explore them much in the lower ranges. So this, as I said, another way of describing ragas, another aspect of the raga lakshana, or how you can talk about raga, is whether they are uttarang or purvang pradhan ragas. That is, whether they have to be explored in the higher ranges mostly, or mostly in the lower ranges, or they have to be explored in all throughout the melodic range. So that is another way of another characteristic of ragas. Now a raga revolves around phrases, though of course it's constituted of swaras, and we have seen various considerations about the swaras in a raga. But it is it's the phrases that really bring out a raga. Notes that are brought together in specific formations, specific phrases basically, with various considerations of Vadi Samvadi, of ornament, and so on. So for instance, in Yaman, though Yaman has a scale of, it's a Sampurna Raga, right? It's a complete, it has all the 7 swaras. So Yaman has a scale of sa sa ri ga ma pa da ni sa ni dha pa ma ga ri sa, right? But we never sing sa re ga re ni da ni sa re sa. We don't. That's not Yaman at all. So these phrases, that is really the life of every rag. Yaman, the phrase always is like ni re ga, almost by default. Very rarely can we find sa re ga, and almost not in contemporary music. Yaman does not use the phrase sa re ga. It's always ni re ga ga re ni da ni re ga sa ni re ga re ni da ni sa ni. This is another important phrase. Ni da ni sa ni ma da sa ma da ni sa. Very rarely. Ma da sa ni re ga re ga ma pa re sa. Again, pa re sa. This is another important phrase of Yaman. Pa sa ma pa sa. This pa sa phrase is again very raga vachaka. That is something that is important for Yaman. Madani sani pa re ga ma pa re sa pa pa sa ni pa madani mani pa ma ga ma re ga. Again, ga ma re ga, that vakrata, that ma re ga re ni re ga ma ni pa re sa.